The sun had already drowned behind the mesas when Talon Grayhawk, an Apache drifter with a scar running from his ear to his collarbone, reached the burnt river. The river was a ghost of what it once was, thin, cracked, and whispering like a dying throat. He had been riding for 3 days, chasing a voice that wasn't supposed to exist. They said a woman lived out here, a white lady who made wishes come true. The miners called her the Witch of Burnt River, while the tribal elders called her the Echo Woman. Talon didn't believe in witches or ghosts, but he believed in debt, and he owed one to the spirit world itself. He dismounted, leading his horse to the water's edge. The air smelled of iron and sage. Then, out of the fading light, she appeared. She wasn't like the stories. She wasn't draped in bones or rags. She wore a flowing, dust-colored dress that shimmered faintly, as if woven from twilight. Her hair, dark as river silt, fell over her shoulders, and her eyes held the stillness of someone who'd seen too much. "You've come a long way, Apache," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but beneath it lingered a strange pull, something both soothing and unsettling. Talon stiffened. "You the one they call the Echo Woman?" She smiled, faint but knowing. "They call me many things. But what matters is you've come to ask for something." He didn't answer right away. The wind moved across the dry grass like a whisper of warning. He had been told never to speak his desires aloud near cursed water. Yet something about her presence made lies feel useless. "I want peace," he said finally. "For my people. For the bones buried back there in red earth." She stepped closer. Her bare feet made no sound. "Peace is costly, Apache. What are you willing to give for it?" Talon met her gaze. "Anything that's mine to give." Her lips curved, half smile, half sorrow. "Then listen carefully." She raised her hand, and a chill swept through the canyon. The riverbed began to glow faintly, like moonlight trapped in clay. "I will fulfill your all wishes," she whispered. "Every dream, every lost cause, every name that cries in your sleep, I will set them free." Talon's heartbeat slowed. The air shimmered around her. "But," her voice hardened slightly, "you must complete your promise." "What promise?" "You will know," she said, "when the sun bleeds over the third hill and the ground trembles beneath your feet. You will remember the words you spoke before you were born." Talon frowned. "You talk like a spirit." She gave a short, sad laugh. "Perhaps I am. Or perhaps I am the last thing this land remembers." A silence fell between them. His horse snorted nervously, stamping the dust. "Where do I begin?" he asked. "Cross the river," she said, pointing toward the faint trickle of water glimmering under the starlight. "There's a town beyond the ridge called Ashvale. When you reach it, seek the man who never sleeps. He will hold what you seek and what you fear." Talon's eyes narrowed. "And if I fail?" "Then your wish dies with you." Before he could say more, a wind swept across the canyon, dry and cold. When he blinked, she was gone. Only her footprints remained in the sand, glowing faintly before fading into nothing. He stood there, listening to the night close around him. Somewhere far off, a coyote howled. Talon felt the weight of something ancient pressing against his chest. A promise he didn't remember making, but one he somehow knew was real. He mounted his horse and rode toward the ridge. Behind him, the burnt river shimmered once more, and a whisper followed in the dark. "Fulfill the promise, Apache, or peace will never find you." By dawn, Talon Grayhawk rode through a ribbon of mist curling between the red hills. The land before him stretched endlessly broken fences, scorched mesquite, and the bones of buffalo scattered like forgotten prayers. His horse Smoke moved cautiously, as if sensing what his master already knew. Whatever waited in Ashvale wasn't meant for living men. He hadn't slept since meeting the strange woman. Her voice still echoed in his head, that whisper, "You must complete your promise." "But what promise?" To whom? As the sun rose higher, he saw the outline of a small town, wooden roofs bent with age, chimneys cold, streets empty. A vulture wheeled above a crooked church steeple. A sign at the edge of the road swayed in the wind. Ashvale, where dust never. Talon dismounted and walked slowly through the main street. The silence was unnatural. Every door was shut, every window covered. He could almost feel eyes watching from behind the curtains, though no one dared to move. He tied Smoke to a post outside the Rusty Lantern Saloon, its door hanging on one hinge. Inside, the air smelled of whiskey, dust, and loneliness. Empty chairs faced an untouched piano. He walked to the counter and found a whiskey glass still half full, as if someone had set it down only moments ago. "You're late," a voice rasped. Talon turned. A man stood in the shadow of the stairs, a tall, thin figure in a black duster, eyes pale as winter sky. His beard was streaked with silver, his face unreadable. "Who are you?" Talon asked. "They call me Vane," the man said, stepping forward. "The one who never sleeps." The air between them tightened. Talon's hand hovered near his holster. "The lady told me to find you." Vane tilted his head, expression unmoved. "Then she's still walking this earth. You know her?" Vane's lips curled slightly. "Everyone who's ever lost something knows her. Some call her savior. Others call her curse." He gestured to the empty saloon. Ashvale was once a mining town. She came here 10 years ago, promised the men gold beneath the hills if they swore to keep her secret. They broke that promise. What happened? "They found gold, all right," Vane said quietly. "Then the earth swallowed them, one by one. The river dried. The sky turned to ash. And now no one here truly sleeps. We just wait." Talon's brow furrowed. "She told me to come here. Said you had what I seek?" Vane leaned closer. "And what do you seek, Apache?" "Peace." The man's pale eyes flickered. "Then you'll need to finish what she started." Talon stared at him. "Explain." Vane pointed toward the saloon's back door. "Behind this town lies a canyon, the Cave of Whispers. Inside there's a stone altar with symbols no man can read. She sealed her promise there. If you open it, your wish will come true. But if you break her condition—" "Which is?" "Leave before the third sunrise," Vane said softly. "No man survives the third day after hearing her voice." Talon exhaled sharply. "And you? You've heard it." Vane gave a hollow smile. "That's why I never sleep." A silence fell, heavy as desert heat. Talon looked out through the swinging door. The sky outside had turned the color of brass. He felt the ground tremble faintly beneath his boots, just like she said it would. He turned back to Vane. "Then I'll go to that cave." The man nodded once. "She be waiting." "She always is." Talon stepped out into the harsh daylight. As he walked through the dead town, shutters cracked open slightly, revealing pale faces watching him. None spoke. None dared. They simply stared as if he were walking toward his own burial. He untied Smoke and mounted. The wind picked up again, carrying a low moan from the far canyon. He looked back one last time at Ashvale, the town that slept with its eyes open, and then rode west. Where the shadows bled across the rock stop behind him, the saloon door creaked open. Vane stood there, face ghostly in the sun. He whispered into the wind, as if to someone unseen, "He's coming, Lady of the River, the one who still believes promises mean something." And far away, where the hills met the fading horizon, a faint voice answered, "Then let him remember what he promised, before it's too late." The trail to the canyon was silent except for the steady rhythm of Smoke's hooves and the whispering wind moving through the ravines. Talon Grayhawk rode without pause, his mind clouded with the woman's words, "I will fulfill your all wishes." but you must complete your promise." By midday, the sky turned iron gray, and thunder rolled far in the distance. The hills rose around him like broken teeth, and every shadow seemed alive. As he approached the canyon, the ground grew colder. Even Smoke hesitated, snorting uneasily as they neared a narrow passage between two cliffs. Dark opening yawned at the base of the rocks, the Cave of Whispers. Talon dismounted, tying his horse to a twisted tree that looked half dead. He took his rifle and stepped forward. The air was thick, still, and electric. Each breath he took carried the scent of stone, sage, and something faintly metallic like blood long dried. Inside, the darkness swallowed him whole. He struck a match, lighting a torch from his saddlebag. The orange flame flickered across the stone walls, revealing drawings, spirals, handprints, strange figures bowing before a woman with flowing hair. He moved deeper. The sound began soft murmurs, like hundreds of people whispering from somewhere beyond the walls. He couldn't make out the words, but they carried weight, grief, and warning. At the heart of the cave, he found it. A stone altar, cracked but still pulsing faintly with blue light. The symbols carved into it shifted when he looked too long, as if alive. He placed his hand upon it. The whispers stopped, then her voice filled the cave. Talon Grayhawk. He froze. The same soft, haunting voice he'd heard by the burnt river echoed all around him. "You've come, as promised." He turned slowly, and there she was, the lady, standing in the torchlight, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and power. "You said you would fulfill my wish," Talon said. His voice steady though his heart thundered. "I came to finish it." She stepped closer, her face calm, but her presence filled the air like a storm about to break. "And yet you don't remember what you promised me before this life began." Talon frowned. "I never made a promise to you." Her expression darkened, almost pitying. "All men forget the oaths they make to the earth, until it comes time to pay them." The torchlight dimmed as if the cave were breathing. The symbols on the wall began to glow brighter. She moved closer, and he saw the faint shimmer of tears in her eyes. "Long ago," she said softly, "you asked me to spare your people. You stood before the fire of war, and you prayed not to gods, not to men, but to me. You said, 'Take my peace, my sleep, my life if you must, but let them live.'" The words hit him like a bullet. Memories flooded back, flames, screams, soldiers' rifles, the cries of women. He had prayed that night, but he thought no one heard. "You kept your side," she said, "and I kept mine. Your people survived the slaughter, hidden by storm and fire. But now the promise must be fulfilled." Talon's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes glowed faintly blue. "Your soul is bound to this land, Talon. I will give you peace. Yes, but only if you do what others could not." He stepped back. "And what's that?" She pointed toward the altar. "Beneath this stone lies the heart of Ashvale, the curse that keeps the dead awake. Destroy it, and both your wish and mine will be complete." The cave shook slightly. Dust rained from the ceiling. Talon raised his rifle. "And what happens to you if I do?" Her smile was soft, almost human. "Then I disappear. The promise ends." He hesitated. There was truth in her eyes, but also a sadness deeper than he could grasp. "Why help me?" he asked. "If it means your own end?" She looked down, voice trembling. "Because I, too, made a promise once to a dying Apache who wanted his people to live." The whispering began again, louder now, circling the walls like wind trapped in stone. Talon placed his palm on the altar, feeling its pulse like a beating heart. "Then I'll do it," he said quietly. The lady stepped back, her face calm but wet with tears. "Then may the earth remember your courage when the sun bleeds again." He raised his rifle and fired. The cave erupted in blue light. The altar shattered, and as the echoes faded, Her voice drifted through the smoke one last time. "Your peace comes at sunrise, Talon Grayhawk. If you survive the night." The explosion of light inside the Cave of Whispers left Talon Grayhawk half blind. The air burned with smoke and the scent of cracked stone. He stumbled backward, rifle still in hand, ears ringing as the cave trembled. The glowing altar was shattered, its light spilling across the walls like blue fire running through veins of rock. For a moment, it was beautiful. Then the whispers returned louder, heavier. No longer soft voices, but 1,000 cries, rising in agony. Talon covered his ears. "What have I done?" The lady's form flickered in the smoke, faint but still there. Her voice wavered like wind through dry reeds. "You kept your promise. But the curse is not so simple." The ground beneath him cracked open. From the fissure, cold mist poured upward, swirling around him. Within it, faces appeared: miners, townsfolk, warriors, all the souls of Ashvale that had been trapped beneath the earth. "Spirits," he muttered, stepping back. "They waited for release," she said. "But release does not mean rest. You freed them, Talon. Now they must find their way." The mist spun faster. The spirits began to move toward the mouth of the cave, whispering as they passed through him. He felt their sorrow pierce his chest like arrows. Each one brushed his skin with memories not his own: grief, betrayal, and longing. When the last spirit passed, silence fell again. The blue glow faded, leaving only the torch's trembling flame. Talon turned to the lady, his voice low. "You said peace would come at sunrise." She looked at him with eyes full of pain. "Peace has many forms. For them, it is freedom. For you, it must still be earned." The torchlight flickered, and for the first time, he noticed the faint cracks spreading up her arms like veins of blue crystal. "What's happening to you?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "The bond is breaking. My time in this world is ending, as it was meant to." He stepped forward. "There must be a way to stop it." Her gaze softened, almost tender. "Do not fight what is sacred. You gave your soul for your people once. Would you deny me the same?" Before he could answer, a gust of wind roared through the cave, blowing out the torch. Total darkness swallowed them. Then faint light seeped through the entrance, a sign that dawn was near. The lady's voice came again, faint and distant now. "Go, Talon. Leave this place before the third sunrise. Remember what I said. The promise is complete, but the debt remains." Talon hesitated, then nodded once. "If there's a debt left, I'll pay it." She stepped closer, her face fading like a dying flame. "You already have." And with that, she dissolved into mist. He stood alone in the silent cave, the broken altar before him. For the first time in years, he felt both heavy and hollow, like a man who'd won something precious but didn't know how to live with it. When he stepped outside, the dawn was breaking. The desert stretched wide, bathed in pale light. But Ashvale was not as he left it. Smoke rose from the town. The air shimmered as if under a spell. When he rode down the ridge, he saw people, the townsfolk of Ashvale, walking the streets again. Not ghosts, not illusions, but living men and women. Blinking at the sunrise. He stopped his horse, disbelief washing over him. A young woman sweeping dust from a porch looked up, confused. "Morning, stranger," she said. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He didn't answer. His heart pounded as realization struck. The curse was undone. The souls that had been trapped beneath the ground were living again. He dismounted slowly, scanning the street. The rusty lantern saloon stood tall again, its windows clear, its door straight on its hinges. And there, sitting by the doorway, was Vane, the sleepless man, only now he looked younger. His eyes no longer pale, but alive. "Talon," he said with a grin. "Guess we're all awake now." Talon's throat tightened. The curse is lifted. Vane nodded. Seems like it. The lady kept her word after all. Talon looked toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight cut through the clouds. He thought of her, the shimmering figure by the burnt river, the sadness in her eyes. The promise that bound them. Where she is now, he murmured. I hope she finally found peace. Vane followed his gaze. She will, Apache. Thanks to you. But as the sun rose higher, Talon felt a chill crawl up his spine. The ground trembled just once, and a faint whisper rode the wind. Peace always has a price. He turned sharply, but there was nothing. Only the desert, wide and silent, and deep inside, he knew the story wasn't over. Not yet. The sun had climbed high when Talon Grayhawk rode through the now lively streets of Ashvale. The air smelled of wood smoke, fresh bread, and horse sweat. Children living children, not echoes, played near the town well, laughing, chasing one another in the soft wind. Talon's chest ached as he watched, knowing the cost of this return to life had been heavy. Though invisible, he stopped by the rusty lantern saloon, now bustling with activity. Miners and merchants moved about, speaking in hurried tones. Yet none noticed him. Perhaps the world itself still hadn't fully accepted him. Vane approached from the doorway, now looking more like a man who had slept in years than the pale shadow of a sleepless sentinel. You did it, Vane said, a faint grin crossing his rugged face. The lady kept her promise. Thanks to you. Talon nodded slowly. The spirits are gone. The curse is lifted. But... He paused, scanning the horizon where the hills met the pale desert sky. The whisper said peace comes with a price. I can feel it. Vane's eyes darkened slightly. That's true of every promise made with her. You've paid part of it already, Apache. There's more to come, but not today. Talon exhaled. He had learned long ago that patience was as important as strength, yet a part of him longed to rest, to forget the burdens he carried. But the lady's words lingered like a ghost on the wind. You must complete your promise. As if summoned by the thought, the earth trembled faintly. Smoke lifted from the canyon where the Cave of Whispers lay hidden. Talon's hand instinctively went to the knife at his belt. Something's coming, he muttered. Vane's gaze followed the horizon. I've seen it before. The lady never gives peace without a test. There's a shadow beyond the hills, men who would take advantage of the land you've saved. Greed, Apache. It always returns. Talon's jaw tightened. He turned his horse and rode toward the rising dust in the distance. Through the wavering heat, he could make out a small band of riders, 5 men. Armed, moving with purpose. As he approached, one of them noticed him. Hey, stranger! The man shouted. This land don't belong to wandering ghosts. Move along, or we'll make you. Talon slowed but did not dismount. I'm not a ghost, he said evenly. I'm the one who survived what you'd call death. And I warn you, don't challenge what you don't understand. The men laughed, a hollow, arrogant sound. Spirits and witches, huh? Guess this desert's gone mad. Talon's eyes hardened. He didn't speak again. His hand rested lightly on his rifle. The wind stilled as the riders closed in. A shot rang out, not from Talon, but from the edge of the ridge. One of the men jerked, horse stumbling. Talon's head turned. He saw Vane, rifle raised, taking careful aim. Apache, Vane shouted. Watch the left flank. The riders charged recklessly. Talon dismounted swiftly, muscles coiled, knife ready. His presence radiated something primal, a combination of fury, precision, and unyielding spirit. The first man reached him and swung a club, but Talon sidestepped with uncanny speed, driving the blade into the man's shoulder. The second came, rifle raised. Talon knocked it aside, twisting it from his grasp and throwing it into the dirt. The fight was brutal but swift. Talon moved like a shadow, every motion precise. Vane covered the ridge, picking off riders who dared aim for them. Dust and blood mingled in the sun, creating a haze that made the desert feel alive and watching. When the last rider fell, silence returned. Talon's chest heaved, sweat and dust plastered to his skin, tribal jewelry glinting in the sun. Vane approached, patting him on the shoulder. "They won't bother Ashvale again," Vane said. "At least, not for a long while." Talon mounted his horse, scanning the horizon. "The lady warned me. There's still a price. Shadows always return." Vane nodded, eyes grim but steady. "Then we'll be ready. She left you a gift, Apache, a reminder that strength is not just in arms, but in the courage to keep promises when no one else remembers them." Talon tightened his grip on the reins, gazing toward the distant canyon. The Cave of Whispers was quiet now, but he knew this peace was fragile. The desert held memory, and memory always returned Dot as he rode back to Ashvale. The townspeople stirring in morning chores. He realized the weight of the lady's lesson. Fulfilling a promise is never the end. It is the beginning of vigilance, Dot, and somewhere beyond the hills. The wind carried a faint echo of her voice. Gentle but commanding. "Remember your promise, Talon Grayhawk? For the land never forgets." The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as Talon Grayhawk rode along the ridge overlooking the Burnt River Valley. Ashvale lay behind him, peaceful for the first time in decades, its townsfolk unaware of the danger that still stalked the hills beyond. Talon's eyes were sharp, scanning every ridge and canyon, every shadow that could conceal movement. He hadn't expected the lady's final test to come so soon, but the tremor he had felt earlier that morning was only the beginning. Smoke trotted beside him, nostrils flaring, ears pricked. Talon's hand brushed the tribal jewelry across his chest, feeling the familiar weight of bone and turquoise against his skin. It was a reminder of every promise kept, every debt paid, and every life saved. But it was also a warning. The lady's words lingered like embers in his mind. Peace always has a price. By mid-afternoon, the ridge ahead shook with movement. Dust spiraled upward, masking a small band of mounted men, more numerous than before. Their leader, a towering figure with a black hat and a rifle slung across his back, signaled the charge. These were not simple thieves. They carried the arrogance of men who believed the West belonged to them. Talon dismounted silently, positioning himself behind a boulder that offered both cover and a vantage point. Smoke pawed the ground nervously, sensing the coming storm. He didn't need to wait long. The band of riders thundered down the slope, yelling, their horses kicking up clouds of red dust. Talon's muscles coiled. He moved like a shadow, barefoot against the rough stone, shirtless and adorned with tribal jewelry that glinted under the blazing sun. His knife was drawn, his rifle at the ready. The first rider reached the base of the ridge and fired a shot, missing narrowly. Talon rolled to the side, grabbing a rock to throw, dislodging a small avalanche of gravel that caused the horse to stumble. He leaped up, knife ready, and met the next man head on. The clash was brutal, precise, and unforgiving. Talon moved with the fluidity of a predator, each strike calculated. His long black hair whipped in the wind, his tribal jewelry clinking softly with every movement, almost like a rhythm marking the battle dot from the ridge. The black-hatted leader raised his rifle, but Talon anticipated the angle, dodging behind a boulder and returning fire with deadly accuracy. The remaining riders faltered, panic spreading through their ranks as the Apache warriors' presence became an unyielding force. One by one, they fell, some fleeing, others incapacitated. Talon's chest heaved, sweat streaking the dust across his skin. The sun began its descent, bathing the valley in a golden red glow. The shadows grew longer, merging with the canyon walls, as if the earth itself had paused to witness the reckoning. when the last of the attackers turned and fled. Talon stood atop the ridge, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. Silence returned, broken only by the distant cry of a hawk. He exhaled slowly, the weight of battle still heavy on his shoulders. From the shadows, a faint whisper echoed. Talon froze. It wasn't the wind, it was her voice, carried on the air. "You have faced the final test, Talon Grayhawk. The price has been acknowledged and the promise fulfilled." He turned toward the sound, but there was no one, only the canyon, stretching endlessly beneath the twilight sky. His heart thudded in his chest, not from fear, but from the realization that the lady's presence had been with him all along, guiding, testing, and observing. He knelt briefly, touching the soil beneath his hand. This land remembers, he thought. Every promise, every act of courage and mercy, it was all inscribed in the bones of the desert. He felt the connection, the ancient pulse of the earth, and for the first time, he understood the depth of the lady's words. Peace had been won not just for Ashvale, but for the valley, the river, and the people who would call this place home for generations. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the golden-red sky fading into deep violet, Talon mounted smoke. The wind carried a gentle warmth now, and the dust settled as if the earth itself sighed in relief. He looked back toward Ashvale one last time, feeling the full weight of what had been accomplished and what had been endured. Every scar, every bruise, every sleepless night had led to this moment. The lady's whisper returned, softer this time, almost tender. "The promise is complete, and the world is yours to protect." Talon tightened his grip on the reins, nodding silently to the wind. The path ahead was uncertain, the desert vast and unforgiving. But he knew one thing. He had honored the promise, and with that, he rode into the fading light. A warrior marked by destiny, tribal strength, and the unbroken spirit of the Apache, ready to face whatever the West had left to throw at him. The first light of dawn broke over the burnt river valley, painting the cliffs in soft gold and pink. Talon Grayhawk rode slowly, Smoke's hooves stirring the dry dust, carrying him back toward Ashvale. The town lay quiet, peaceful, almost serene, a sharp contrast to the trials of the past days. For the first time, the weight on Talon's shoulders felt lighter. He had survived the cave, the cursed whispers, and the men who sought to claim the land for themselves. Every test, every shadow, had brought him closer to understanding the lady's meaning behind her words. "I will fulfill your all wishes, but you must complete your promise." As he entered Ashvale, townsfolk emerged cautiously from their homes. They no longer stared with fear, nor did they whisper about ghosts. Children ran past him, laughing, while shopkeepers went about their morning chores. It was as if the town itself had exhaled at the rusty lantern saloon. Vane waited, leaning against the doorway with a relaxed posture, still alert, yet finally human, freed from the sleepless curse. Talon dismounted and approached him. "You made it," Vane said simply. Talon's eyes scanned the town, taking in the streets, the buildings, and the people whose lives had been restored. "It's over," he said quietly. "The curse is gone. Peace has returned." Vane nodded. "Thanks to you, Apache. The lady kept her word. And so did you." Talon's gaze drifted toward the horizon, toward the burnt river and the canyon where the Cave of Whispers lay hidden. He could almost hear her voice again, soft and fading in the morning breeze. "The promise is complete, Talon Grayhawk, and the world is yours to protect." He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. It wasn't just the town he had saved, it was the land itself, every canyon, every ridge, every hidden stream and desert path. The spirits that had once been trapped, the whispers that had haunted the valley, all were gone. Free at last. A sudden stir of movement at the edge of town caught his attention. A group of townsfolk approached, carrying baskets and tools. They stopped a respectful distance away. "Sir," a young man said, eyes wide with awe, We don't know who you are, but you've saved Ashvale. The town, the land. It's alive again because of you." Talon gave a faint nod. "I did what was needed. Your people are free. The land remembers, but it also forgives. Use this gift wisely." The townsfolk bowed their heads, understanding more than words could convey. They had been given a second chance, and now it was up to them to honor it. Talon turned toward Vane. "What will you do now?" Vane smiled, a genuine smile that carried relief. "I'll stay here, help rebuild, and make sure the town never forgets what happened." "And you, Apache? Your path is different." Talon nodded. He felt the pull of the desert calling him back, the vast, untamed wilderness that had been his home long before Ashvale existed. His tribal jewelry jingled softly with each movement, a reminder of his people, his promises, and his strength. He mounted Smoke and rode toward the hills once more. The wind whipped his long black hair, dust swirling around him, carrying the faint memory of the lady. He whispered a silent vow to her, to the land and to the spirits who had found release, "Your work is done. I will honor the promise always." As he disappeared into the horizon, the valley seemed to shimmer with life, the river glistened in the sunlight. The mesa stood proud, and the town of Ashvale thrived under the care of its people. Peace had returned, not as a fleeting illusion, but as a living, breathing reality. The desert remained vast, unpredictable, and full of shadows. Yet for Talon, that uncertainty no longer frightened him. He had faced the supernatural, the cursed, and the human greed that threatened his world, and he had survived. High above, a hawk circled, wings glinting in the sun. Talon watched it briefly before turning his eyes back to the trail ahead. Every step, every challenge had led to this moment, the promise fulfilled, the curse broken, and the land finally at peace. And somewhere, in the whisper of the wind through the canyon, the lady's voice lingered one last time. "Well done, Talon Grayhawk. The land remembers, and so shall you." With that, the valley fell silent, peaceful, and eternal. The warrior rode on, a lone protector of a world that had almost been lost, carrying with him the weight and honor of every promise ever made.